The Forbes magazine hit the coffee shop table with a soft thud, my face staring back at me from the cover, with the words CEO of the Year printed in bold letters beneath my name. I picked up my phone and dialed the number I hadn't called in 8 years. When my mother's voice answered, there was a long pause before she whispered, "Ria, is that really you?" I looked at the magazine cover one more time and said, "Remember when you told me to find another family? Well, I did, and they just put me on the cover of Forbes." I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Ria Sullivan, and this story begins when I was 14 years old, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Cleveland, Ohio, with my mother Caroline and my 8-year-old half-sister Emma. My father had walked out when I was 7, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and a mother who worked double shifts at the local diner just to keep us afloat. For years, it was just the 3 of us against the world. I helped Emma with her homework every night while Mom worked late, made sure she had clean clothes for school, and taught myself to cook basic meals so we wouldn't survive solely on cereal and sandwiches. Despite the struggles, we were a team. Caroline would come home exhausted but still find energy to ask about our days, help with school projects, and tuck Emma in with stories about princesses who saved themselves. Everything changed the day Mom brought Derek Martinez home. Derek was a construction supervisor with calloused hands and a smile that seemed to charm my mother instantly. He drove a shiny red pickup truck that looked expensive, wore cologne that filled our small apartment, and spoke about his plans to start his own contracting business. Within 3 months of dating, he had practically moved into our apartment, leaving his tools in our hallway and his clothes mixed in with Mom's laundry. At first, I tried to give Derek a chance. He seemed to make Mom happy in a way I hadn't seen since before Dad left. He brought flowers occasionally, took us out for pizza on Fridays, and promised Emma he'd teach her how to ride the bike that had been sitting unused in our storage unit for 2 years. But Derek had rules, lots of them. The television volume couldn't exceed 15 because it gave him headaches after long days at construction sites. Emma and I had to be completely silent after 8 p.m. because he needed his rest. My friends weren't allowed over anymore because Derek said teenage girls were too loud and dramatic. When I tried to explain that I needed study groups for my advanced placement classes, Derek laughed and said smart girls who thought they were better than everyone else usually ended up disappointed by real life. Mom started changing too. She stopped asking about my school activities and began focusing entirely on what would make Derek comfortable. When I made the honor roll, she gave me a distracted congratulations before rushing to prepare Derek's favorite dinner. When I got accepted into the National Honor Society, she missed the ceremony because Derek had wanted to go bowling that night. The breaking point came during my sophomore year. I had been working on a science fair project for months, researching renewable energy solutions and building a working model of a solar-powered water purification system. The project required space to work, materials for building, and quiet time for calculations. Derek complained constantly about my supplies taking up room in the living room and my late-night work sessions disturbing his sleep. 2 weeks before the science fair, Derek came home drunk and angry about a problem at his work site. He stumbled into the living room where my project was carefully arranged and knocked over my model, sending weeks of work crashing to the floor. The delicate solar panels cracked, the purification chamber shattered, and months of research scattered across the room. I started crying and trying to salvage what I could, but Derek just stood there, swaying, and said it served me right for cluttering up his space with useless school garbage. When I looked to Mom for support, she avoided my eyes and quietly began helping Derek to their bedroom. I spent the entire night trying to rebuild what I could, but the damage was too extensive. I had to withdraw from the science fair and watch as my chemistry teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, expressed disappointment in my decision to quit. She had been counting on my project to represent our school at the regional competition. That's when I realized Derek wasn't just changing our living situation, he was actively sabotaging my future. I started keeping detailed notes of every incident. Derek threw away my college brochures because they were cluttering the kitchen counter. Derek scheduled loud construction work in the apartment during my SAT prep sessions. Derek convinced Mom that my part-time job at the local bookstore was unnecessary because it took time away from household responsibilities. The worst part was watching Emma begin to imitate Derek's dismissive attitude towards education and ambition. She started making fun of my study habits, calling me names Derek used, and asking why I thought I was so much better than everyone else. My little sister, who used to beg me to help her with math problems, began refusing my assistance and letting her grades slip. When I confronted Mom about Derek's behavior, she sighed and said relationships require compromise from everyone. She explained that Derek provided stability and financial security we hadn't had in years. His income meant we could afford better groceries, Emma could join the soccer team, and Mom could finally stop working double shifts. But I was paying the price for that stability. My grades began to suffer as the hostile environment at home made studying nearly impossible. College seemed like an impossible dream when I couldn't even find a quiet space to complete homework assignments. My guidance counselor, Mr. Thompson, called home several times to discuss my declining performance and missed deadlines for scholarship applications. Derek answered one of those calls and told Mr. Thompson that some kids just weren't cut out for higher education and needed to learn practical skills instead. When I tried to explain that I had been on track for early admission to several universities, Derek laughed and said college was a waste of money for girls who would just get married and have babies anyway. That conversation happened on a Tuesday in March, and by Friday, everything had fallen apart completely. I had been accepted to a competitive summer program at Case Western Reserve University, a 6-week intensive course in engineering and technology that could have opened doors to full scholarship opportunities. The program required a deposit and signed parental consent forms by the following Monday. When I excitedly showed Mom the acceptance letter, she smiled and said we would discuss it over dinner. But Derek took one look at the paperwork and declared that spending 6 weeks at some fancy university would give me unrealistic expectations about life. He said girls from our neighborhood didn't belong in programs like that, and I would only embarrass myself trying to compete with kids from wealthy families. Mom stood quietly in the kitchen, washing dishes while Derek explained why the summer program was a bad idea. She nodded when he said the money would be better spent on practical things like Emma's school clothes and soccer equipment. She agreed when he pointed out that I would be safer staying home instead of living in university dormitories with strangers. I realized at that moment that my mother had made her choice, and it wasn't me. The next morning, I cornered Mom while Derek was in the shower. I placed the acceptance letter and consent forms on the kitchen counter between us and said I needed her signature by noon to meet the deadline. She picked up her coffee mug with shaking hands and stared at the paperwork like it was written in a foreign language. "Rhea, honey, we've talked about this," she said without looking at me. "Derek thinks—" "I don't care what Derek thinks," I interrupted. "This is about my future. This program could get me a full scholarship to college. We're talking about a completely different life." Mom finally met my eyes, and for a moment I saw the woman who used to stay up late helping me build dioramas for history class. Then Derek's voice boomed from the bathroom, singing off-key, and that woman disappeared. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. "He's right about one thing," Mom said quietly. "We can't afford to have unrealistic expectations. Look around, Rhea. This is our life. Derek provides for us now, and I won't do anything to jeopardize that security." I felt something crack inside my chest. What about my security? What about my future? "Your future is what you make of it, but it needs to be realistic." I grabbed the forms and walked to Emma's room, where she was getting ready for school. My sister looked up from braiding her hair and immediately noticed my expression. "Emma, I need you to understand something," I said, sitting on her bed. "Derek is trying to keep me from going to college. He's convincing Mom that I shouldn't pursue my dreams because he's threatened by the idea that I might succeed. Emma finished her braid and turned to face me fully. Maybe Derek's just looking out for you. Maybe college isn't for everyone. I stared at my little sister, hearing Derek's words coming from her mouth, and realized I was losing her too. That afternoon, I walked to the public library and called the summer program coordinator from the payphone outside. I explained my situation carefully, asking if there was any way to extend the deadline or work around the parental consent requirement. The coordinator, Dr. Patricia Walsh, listened patiently before explaining that all participants needed to be 18 or have guardian permission due to liability issues. However, Dr. Walsh continued, if you're dealing with a difficult family situation, there might be other options. Have you considered emancipation? I had never heard the term before, but Dr. Walsh connected me with a legal aid society that provided free consultations for minors. 3 days later, I sat in a cramped office across from attorney Jennifer Kim, who explained that emancipation would legally separate me from my mother's authority, but also from any financial support. You'd need to prove you can support yourself financially, Ms. Kim explained. Housing, food, medical expenses, school supplies. Do you have a job? I nodded. I work at Henderson's Books 15 hours a week. That's not going to be enough. You'd need full-time employment or multiple income sources, and you'd still need somewhere to live. Walking home from that appointment, I realized I was trapped. I couldn't stay in a house where my ambitions were actively sabotaged, but I couldn't afford to leave either. That's when I remembered Mrs. Rodriguez mentioning that her husband ran a small tutoring company and was always looking for reliable high school students to help younger kids with homework. I called the number Mrs. Rodriguez gave me and spoke with her husband, Miguel Rodriguez, who owned Academic Solutions. Miguel needed someone to help elementary and middle school students with math and science 3 evenings a week and Saturday mornings. The pay wasn't much, but combined with my bookstore job, it might be enough to survive independently. Miguel invited me to his office for an interview, which was actually the converted garage behind his house. The space was filled with small desks, educational posters, and shelves of workbooks organized by grade level. During our conversation, I mentioned my situation at home without going into specifics. You know, Miguel said thoughtfully, we've been looking for someone to help manage the administrative side of the business too, scheduling appointments, organizing materials, handling phone calls. If you're interested in more responsibilities, we could offer you a position that's almost full-time. I accepted immediately. The hard part was telling Mom. I waited until Derek left for work the next morning and found her drinking coffee in the kitchen, still in her bathrobe. I got a second job, I announced. I'll be working at a tutoring center most evenings and weekends. Mom looked up from her newspaper. That seems like a lot for someone your age. When will you have time for schoolwork? I'll manage. I need the money. Money for what? Derek and I provide everything you need. I took a deep breath. I'm saving up to move out. The coffee mug hit the counter harder than Mom intended, creating a sharp clink that seemed to echo through the small kitchen. Move out? Rhea, you're 16 years old. You can't just move out. Actually, I can. I've been researching emancipation laws. Mom's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally something that looked like panic. Emancipation? Rhea, that's extreme. We can work through whatever problems you think we have. Can we? Because Derek has made it clear that my education isn't a priority in this house. You've made it clear that keeping Derek happy is more important than supporting my goals, so I'm taking responsibility for my own future. That evening, Derek came home to find Mom crying at the kitchen table with legal documents spread in front of her. I was in my room when I heard him shouting. She wants to do what? Caroline, you cannot let that ungrateful little brat manipulate you like this. She's trying to tear this family apart because she didn't get her way about some stupid summer camp. It wasn't summer camp, Derek, Mom replied quietly. It was a university program. Same difference. She's 16 years old and thinks she knows everything. Well, let me tell you something about 16-year-old girls who think they're smarter than everyone else. The real world is going to hit her like a freight train. I heard footsteps approaching my room and quickly pretended to be doing homework. Derek knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. "Your mother is upset," he said, leaning against my doorframe with his arms crossed. "She thinks you're serious about this emancipation nonsense." "I am serious." Derek laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Kid, you have no idea what you're talking about. You think working at a bookstore and tutoring some little kids is going to pay for rent, utilities, food, clothes, transportation, medical bills? You're living in a fantasy." "Maybe, but it's my fantasy to live in or fail at. And when you fail, and you will fail, don't come crawling back here expecting us to clean up your mess. Your mother might be soft enough to take you back, but I won't have it. You make this choice, you live with the consequences." I looked up from my textbook and met his eyes. "I understand." Derek stared at me for a long moment, probably expecting me to back down. When I didn't, he shook his head and walked away, muttering something about stubborn teenagers who thought they knew better than adults. But I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. 2 weeks later, Miguel Rodriguez offered me an opportunity that changed everything. A family in Shaker Heights was looking for a live-in tutor for their 12-year-old daughter who was struggling with math and science. The position included a small salary, plus room and board, in exchange for homework help, test preparation, and academic mentoring. "The Hendersons are good people," Miguel explained. "David is a pediatrician, and Sarah teaches high school English. Their daughter Katie is bright, but needs someone closer to her age to help her build confidence in STEM subjects." I met the Henderson family that Saturday. Their house was everything our apartment wasn't: spacious, quiet, filled with books and plants, and equipped with a dedicated study room where Katie could work without distractions. David and Sarah Henderson were the kind of parents who asked thoughtful questions about my academic interests and listened carefully to my answers. "We're looking for more than just homework help," Sarah explained. "We want someone who can be a positive role model and help Katie develop better study habits. Your teachers speak very highly of your work ethic and maturity." When they offered me the position, I accepted on the spot. The conversation with Mom happened on a rainy Thursday evening in April. I had spent the afternoon packing my belongings into 3 cardboard boxes and 2 duffel bags, everything I owned fitting into containers that could be loaded into Miguel Rodriguez's pickup truck. I found Mom folding laundry in the living room while Derek watched television. Emma was at soccer practice, which meant I had to have this conversation without her hearing every word. "I'm moving in with the Henderson family on Saturday," I announced, setting my acceptance letter from the Emancipation Court on the coffee table next to Derek's beer. Derek glanced at the official paperwork and snorted. "Look at that. Little Miss Independent got her way after all. Caroline, your daughter just became someone else's problem." Mom picked up the letter with trembling fingers and read through it twice before looking at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and I realized she had been crying long before I entered the room. "Ria, please reconsider this. We're a family. Families work through their problems together." "Are we a family?" I asked. "Because families support each other's dreams. Families don't sabotage scholarship opportunities or destroy science projects. Families don't choose boyfriends over children." Derek stood up from his recliner, his face flushed with anger. "You ungrateful little—" "Derek, please," Mom interrupted, but her voice lacked conviction. He ignored her and stepped closer to me. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think these rich people in Shaker Heights are going to treat you like their own daughter? Wake up, kid. You're the help. You're a glorified babysitter who thinks she's too good for her own family." I kept my voice steady. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I am just the help. But at least they respect my intelligence and support my education." "Your education?" Derek laughed harshly. "You mean your expensive hobby that's never going to pay the bills? These people are filling your head with nonsense about college and careers because they can afford to waste money on dreams. We live in the real world." Mom stood up from the couch, still holding the emancipation papers. "Derek, that's enough." For a moment, I thought she was going to defend me. I thought the mother who used to help me with school projects might finally surface and tell Derek that he was wrong about my potential. Instead, she turned to me with tired eyes and said, "If this is really what you want, then maybe it's for the best. Maybe you do need to learn some hard lessons about life." Something cold settled in my stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if you're so determined to leave this family behind, then perhaps you should commit to that decision completely." Derek smiled, recognizing that Mom was finally taking his side. "What your mother is trying to say is that you can't have it both ways. You can't abandon your family and then expect us to be here when your fantasy falls apart." Mom nodded slowly. "If you walk out that door on Saturday, Rhea, don't expect to come back. Don't expect holiday invitations or birthday phone calls. Don't expect Emma to consider you her sister anymore." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. "You're choosing him over me?" "I'm choosing stability over chaos," Mom replied. "I'm choosing the man who pays our bills and wants to build a life with us over the daughter who thinks she's too good for the family that raised her." "The family that raised me? Dad abandoned us when I was 7. I raised myself while you worked double shifts. I helped raise Emma while you were trying to survive. And now you're throwing me away because I want something better than this?" Derek stepped forward again. "Nobody's throwing you away. You're throwing yourself away. You're choosing strangers over blood because you think you're special. Well, let me tell you something. The world is full of smart girls who thought they deserved more than they got. Most of them end up disappointed and alone." I looked at my mother, searching her face for any sign of the woman who used to tell me I could be anything I wanted to be. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who chose security over supporting her daughter's dreams. "Find another family," Mom said quietly. "Since you're so convinced that we're not good enough for you, go find the family you think you deserve." Those words hit me harder than Derek's threats or insults. My own mother was telling me to find another family. I picked up the emancipation papers from the coffee table and folded them carefully. "Okay, I will." When Emma came home from soccer practice an hour later, she found me taping up the last of my boxes in our shared bedroom. Her cleats were muddy, her uniform grass-stained, and her hair was falling out of its ponytail. "You're really leaving?" she asked, dropping her soccer bag by the door. "Yes." Emma sat on her bed and watched me label a box of textbooks and notebooks. "Derek says you think you're better than us." I stopped packing and turned to face my little sister. "Emma, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just think I deserve a chance to use my brain and pursue my goals. Everyone deserves that chance, including you." "But Mom says college is expensive and most people can't afford it." Mom is wrong about a lot of things. There are scholarships, grants, work-study programs. There are ways to make education affordable if you're willing to work for it. Emma picked at her bedspread. "Are you ever coming back?" I wanted to lie and tell her that of course I would visit, that we would still be sisters no matter what happened. But Mom had made the terms clear. "I don't think so," I said honestly. "Mom and Derek have made it clear that leaving means leaving permanently." "Good," Emma said, but her voice cracked. "Derek says you were making everyone miserable anyway." I finished taping the box and sat on my bed across from her. "Emma, can I tell you something important?" She nodded reluctantly. "Don't let anyone convince you that wanting more for yourself is selfish or unrealistic. You're smart and you're creative, and you have every right to dream big. Don't let Derek or anyone else tell you that girls like us don't belong in universities or careers that require education." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. "You sound just like Derek said you would, all high and mighty." I realized that Derek had already poisoned my relationship with my sister beyond repair. Emma had been my motivation for years. I wanted to succeed partly to show her that escape was possible. Now she saw my ambition as betrayal. "I love you," I told her, "even if you don't believe that right now." Emma didn't respond. She grabbed her soccer bag and left the room, closing the door harder than necessary. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Miguel Rodriguez pulled up to our apartment building at exactly 9 a.m. as planned. I loaded my boxes and bags into his truck while Mom watched from the kitchen window. Derek had left early for a construction job, avoiding the awkwardness of goodbyes. Emma sat at the kitchen table eating cereal and pointedly ignored my attempts to say farewell. When I tried to hug her, she stiffened and turned her face away. "Emma, just go," she mumbled into her cereal bowl. Mom walked me to the front door, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. For a moment, I thought she might change her mind and ask me to stay. Instead, she handed me an envelope. "Your social security card and birth certificate," she said. "You'll need them for your new life." "Mom." "Take care of yourself, Ria. I hope you find what you're looking for." She closed the door before I could respond, and I heard the deadbolt slide into place. Miguel drove me to the Henderson house in silence, occasionally glancing at me in the rearview mirror. When we pulled into their circular driveway, he finally spoke. "You know, mija, sometimes the family that raises us isn't the same as the family that helps us grow. The Hendersons are good people. Let them help you." David and Sarah Henderson came out to greet us as we unloaded my belongings. Their daughter Katie bounced excitedly behind them, eager to mate her new tutor and housemate. The contrast between their warm welcome and the cold goodbye I had just experienced was almost overwhelming. "Welcome home, Ria," Sarah said, giving me a genuine hug. "We're so glad you're here." As we carried my boxes up to the guest room that would become my space, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. For the first time in months, I looked hopeful instead of defeated. That night, I called the Case Western Reserve University summer program and informed Dr. Walsh that I would be able to attend after all. My emancipation papers meant I could sign my own consent forms. "Wonderful," Dr. Walsh said. "I'm looking forward to working with you this summer. This program is going to open doors you never imagined possible." She had no idea how right she was. Living with the Henderson family felt like discovering a different species of human beings. Every morning, David Henderson asked Katie and me what we had learned the day before and what we hoped to accomplish today. Sarah kept a calendar on the refrigerator that included not just family appointments, but also Katie's school projects, my tutoring schedule, and even my college prep activities. The summer program at Case Western Reserve University transformed everything I thought I knew about my own capabilities. Dr. Walsh had assembled 30 high school students from across Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania for an intensive deep dive into environmental engineering and sustainable technology. We spent mornings and lectures with actual university professors and afternoons in fully equipped laboratories working on projects that could have real-world applications. My project partner was a 17-year-old named Marcus Chen from Columbus, whose parents were both chemical engineers at Battelle Memorial Institute. Marcus had resources I could never have imagined: access to advanced software, connections to industry professionals, and most importantly, family members who understood the value of scientific research. My parents said they'd help us file a patent application if our water filtration system actually works, Marcus told me, during our third week. They know lawyers who specialize in environmental technology. I stopped soldering a circuit connection and stared at him. "Patent application? We're just trying to pass the program requirements." Marcus laughed. "Ria, look at what we've built. This isn't just a school project anymore. We've created a portable water purification system that costs less than $50 to manufacture and can process contaminated water at 3 times the rate of existing consumer products." He was right. Our system combined solar energy collection with a multi-stage filtration process that removed bacteria, viruses, and chemical contaminants. We had tested it on water samples from Lake Erie, the Cuyahoga River, and even deliberately contaminated laboratory specimens. The results consistently exceeded EPA standards for safe drinking water. Dr. Walsh arranged for us to present our findings to a panel of environmental engineering professors from Case Western, Cleveland State University, and the University of Akron. The presentation room was packed with graduate students, faculty members, and representatives from local environmental organizations. Standing in front of that audience, explaining our methodology and demonstrating our prototype, I felt something I had never experienced before: complete confidence in my own intelligence and abilities. These weren't people who thought education was a waste of time or that smart girls should lower their expectations. They were professionals who respected innovation and recognized potential. Dr. Patricia Jennings from the University of Akron approached me after our presentation. "Ria, have you considered applying to our early admission program? Students with your research capabilities and practical problem-solving skills are exactly what we're looking for." She handed me her business card and information about a full scholarship program specifically designed for first-generation college students with demonstrated excellence in STEM fields. The scholarship covered tuition, housing, meal plans, textbooks, and even provided a stipend for research materials. "The application deadline isn't until November," Dr. Jennings continued, "but I'd be happy to work with you personally on your essay and help you prepare for the interview process." That night, I called Miguel Rodriguez to share the news about the scholarship opportunity. Miguel had become something like a surrogate father figure, checking in with me regularly and celebrating every academic milestone. "Mija, this is incredible," Miguel said. "A full ride to the University of Akron's engineering program? Do you realize what this means?" "It means I might actually be able to afford college." "It means much more than that. It means you're building a foundation for the kind of life you've always wanted." The Henderson family was equally excited. David and Sarah insisted on taking me and Katie out for dinner at their favorite restaurant to celebrate. During the meal, Sarah asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Ria, have you told your mother about these opportunities?" I set down my fork and looked at my plate. My mother made it clear that she doesn't want to be involved in my life anymore. David frowned. "Surely she would want to hear about your successes. You're her daughter." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "She told me to find another family when I decided to leave. So I did." Katie, who had been listening intently, reached over and squeezed my hand. "We're your family now." The simple sincerity of her statement almost made me cry. These people had welcomed me into their home, supported my ambitions, and treated my dreams as valid and achievable. They had given me something I never expected to find: unconditional acceptance of my intelligence and potential. Senior year passed in a blur of college applications, scholarship interviews, and advanced coursework. I maintained a 4.0 GPA while working with Katie on her studies, helping Miguel expand his tutoring business, and conducting independent research on sustainable technology solutions. The University of Akron not only accepted me into their early admission program, but also offered me additional opportunities I hadn't known existed. Dr. Jennings connected me with a research team working on environmental remediation projects funded by the Environmental Protection Agency. As an undergraduate, I would be able to participate in real scientific research that could influence government policy and environmental protection efforts. Marcus Chen, who had been accepted to MIT, stayed in touch throughout senior year. In February, he called with news that changed everything. "Ria, remember that patent application my parents helped us file? Well, Ecotech Solutions wants to license our water filtration technology. They're offering us a licensing deal that includes upfront payment plus royalties on every unit they manufacture." I nearly dropped the phone. How much money are we talking about? Enough to pay for college without loans, enough to fund additional research projects, enough to start thinking about launching our own company after graduation. The licensing agreement with Ecotech Solutions was finalized in March. My portion of the deal included $50,000 upfront and a percentage of future sales revenue. For someone who had been worried about affording textbooks, this represented financial freedom I had never imagined possible. More importantly, it validated everything I had believed about the power of education and innovation. The water filtration system, that began as a high school summer project, was now being manufactured for distribution to disaster relief organizations, rural communities without access to clean water, and developing nations struggling with water security issues. Marcus Chen, who had been accepted to MIT, stayed in touch throughout senior year. In February, he called with news that changed everything. Ria, remember that patent application my parents helped us file? Well, Ecotech Solutions wants to license our water filtration technology. They're offering us a licensing deal that includes upfront payment plus royalties on every unit they manufacture. I nearly dropped the phone. How much money are we talking about? Enough to pay for college without loans, enough to fund additional research projects, enough to start thinking about launching our own company after graduation. The licensing agreement with Ecotech Solutions was finalized in March. My portion of the deal included $50,000 up front and a percentage of future sales revenue. For someone who had been worried about affording textbooks, this represented financial freedom I had never imagined possible. More importantly, it validated everything I had believed about the power of education and innovation. The water filtration system, that began as a high school summer project, was now being manufactured for distribution to disaster relief organizations, rural communities without access to clean water, and developing nations struggling with water security issues. David Henderson helped me set up a college savings account and investment portfolio with the licensing money. Sarah connected me with a financial advisor who specialized in helping young entrepreneurs manage unexpected income responsibly. The key, the financial advisor explained, is to view this money as a foundation for building long-term wealth, not as something to spend on immediate wants. I had no interest in spending the money on cars or clothes or vacations. I wanted to use it to ensure that I would never again be dependent on anyone else for my security or my opportunities to pursue my goals. Graduation day arrived sunny and warm. The Henderson family sat in the front row of the auditorium, cheering when I walked across the stage as valedictorian. Sarah cried openly when I delivered my speech about the importance of supporting young people's dreams and the transformative power of education. Miguel Rodriguez brought his entire extended family to the ceremony. Mrs. Rodriguez, whom I had met several times at tutoring center events, hugged me afterwards and said I had become like a daughter to them. "You've made us all so proud, mija. Your success shows other young people that anything is possible with hard work and determination." The only absence I felt that day was Emma. Despite everything that had happened, she was still my little sister, and I had hoped she might somehow find a way to attend my graduation. But there had been no contact from my biological family since the day I moved out 2 years earlier. After the ceremony, as I posed for pictures with the Henderson family and collected congratulations from teachers and classmates, I made a decision that had been forming in my mind for weeks. With the licensing money providing financial security and my full scholarship covering college expenses, I had resources I could use to give back to other young people facing situations similar to what I had experienced. I wanted to create opportunities for smart, ambitious teenagers whose families didn't support their educational goals. "David, Sarah," I said as we drove home from the graduation ceremony, "I want to start a scholarship fund for students who are pursuing education despite family opposition or financial hardship." Sarah turned around from the front seat with tears still in her eyes. "That's a beautiful idea, Ria. How can we help?" "I want to donate half of my licensing money to establish an endowment that provides scholarships, mentoring, and support services for kids who are trying to escape limiting circumstances through education." David pulled into their driveway and turned off the engine. "You realize that's $25,000 you're talking about giving away?" "Yes, and I can't think of a better investment in the future." That summer, before starting college, I worked with a nonprofit layer to establish the Sullivan Foundation for Educational Opportunity. The foundation would provide scholarships, mentoring programs, and emergency assistance to help academically gifted students overcome family resistance, financial barriers, and other obstacles to higher education. Our first scholarship recipient was a 16-year-old girl from Akron whose parents had forbidden her to take advanced mathematics courses because they believed higher education would make her unmarriable. With our support, she was able to attend summer programs, prepare for college admissions, and eventually earn admission to Ohio State University's Honors Engineering program. Starting college that fall felt like stepping into a completely different universe. My dormitory room was larger than the bedroom I had shared with Emma. The library had resources I could access 24 hours a day. Professors held office hours specifically to help students succeed in their coursework. Most importantly, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence, celebrated academic achievement, and understood that education was an investment in future possibilities rather than an expensive hobby. Dr. Jennings became not just my academic advisor, but also a mentor who helped me navigate the complexities of university research, professional networking, and career planning. Through her connections, I had opportunities to present my work at national conferences, collaborate with graduate students on advanced projects, and gain experience with cutting-edge technology. By my sophomore year, I had started my second company. My second company started in a cramped corner of my dormitory room with nothing but a laptop, a notebook full of sketches, and an idea that had been brewing since my freshman chemistry class. Professor Angela Martinez had assigned a research project on microplastics contamination in freshwater systems. While conducting my research, I discovered that existing filtration technologies were either too expensive for widespread implementation or too inefficient to handle the microscopic scale of plastic particles polluting our water supplies. The solution came to me during a particularly boring economics lecture. I started sketching a bioengineered filtration system that used specially modified bacteria to break down microplastics at the molecular level. The bacteria would consume the plastic particles and convert them into harmless organic compounds that could actually benefit aquatic ecosystems. My roommate, Jessica Park, was a business major who had been watching me work on various projects since we started college. When she saw my sketches and calculations, she asked the question that changed everything. Ria, do you realize you're designing something that could revolutionize water treatment worldwide? I looked up from my notebook. It's just a class project, Jess. No, it's not. This is a multi-billion-dollar problem that you're solving in your dorm room. Have you talked to the Technology Transfer Office about protecting this intellectual property? I had never heard of a Technology Transfer Office, but Jessica insisted we schedule an appointment immediately. Dr. Richard Webb, the university's Director of Technology Commercialization, reviewed my research with growing excitement. Miss Sullivan, what you've developed here has enormous commercial potential. The global water treatment market is worth over $300 billion annually, and microplastics remediation is one of the fastest-growing segments. Dr. Webb connected me with patent attorneys, helped me file provisional patent applications, and introduced me to venture capital firms that specialized in environmental technology startups. Within 6 months, I had founded Aqua Biosolutions with initial funding from 3 different investors. The company's first breakthrough came during my junior year when we successfully tested our bacterial filtration system on water samples from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The results exceeded our most optimistic projections. Our bioengineered bacteria could eliminate 97% of microplastic contamination, while simultaneously improving water quality through the production of beneficial organic compounds. Major corporations started calling. Nestle wanted to license our technology for their bottled water operations. General Electric offered to acquire the company outright for $12 million. Environmental consulting firms across North America requested pilot program proposals. Instead of accepting any of these offers, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. We're going to scale up manufacturing and maintain control of our own technology, I announced during a board meeting with our investors. This isn't just about profit margins. This is about ensuring that clean water technology remains accessible to communities that need it most. Our lead investor, Catherine Rodriguez from Green Tech Ventures, leaned back in her chair and studied me carefully. Ria, you're turning down guaranteed money to bet on your ability to build a manufacturing and distribution company from scratch. That's incredibly risky for someone who's still in college. It's also incredibly necessary, I replied. Every day we delay implementation, millions of people continue drinking contaminated water. Every month we spent negotiating licensing deals with corporations that prioritize profits over public health is another month that our technology sits unused. Catherine smiled. That's exactly why we invested in you, instead of the dozens of other environmental technology startups we've reviewed. You think like an entrepreneur, but you care like a scientist. Green Tech Ventures increased their investment, helped us secure additional funding from impact investors who shared our vision of prioritizing social benefit alongside financial returns. By the end of my junior year, Aqua Biosolutions had raised $45 million and was preparing to open our first manufacturing facility in Cleveland. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was building a multi-million-dollar company less than 50 miles from the apartment where Derek Martinez had told me that smart girls usually ended up disappointed by real life. Managing a growing company while completing my engineering degree required time management skills I hadn't known I possessed. I attended classes in the morning, worked in our temporary laboratory space during afternoons, and handled investor calls and strategic planning meetings in the evenings. Marcus Chen, who had graduated from MIT and working for a technology consulting firm in Boston, joined Aqua Biosolutions as our chief technology officer. His expertise in scaling manufacturing processes was exactly what we needed to transition from laboratory prototypes to industrial-scale production. Remember when we thought getting our water purification patent was the biggest success we'd ever achieve? Marcus asked during one of our late-night strategy sessions. Now we're running a company that employs 37 people and has contracts with municipal water treatment facilities in 6 states. The success of Aqua Biosolutions attracted attention from environmental organizations, government agencies, and international development groups. The United Nations Environmental Program invited me to speak at their annual conference in Geneva about innovative approaches to global water security challenges. Standing on that stage in Switzerland, addressing an audience of environmental ministers, NGO leaders, and policy experts from around the world, I thought about the 14-year-old girl who used to hide in the library to find quiet space for homework. The contrast between where I had started and where I stood now seemed almost impossible to believe. Clean water is not a luxury, I told the assembly. It's a fundamental human right that requires innovative solutions and committed implementation. Technology alone cannot solve water security challenges, but technology combined with social responsibility can create transformative change. The Forbes magazine arrived at my Cleveland office on a Tuesday morning in October, 6 months after graduation. My assistant, Jennifer Walsh, brought it to my desk with barely contained excitement. "Ria, you need to see this. You're not just in the magazine, you're on the cover." More important than the media attention were the practical results of our work. Aqua Biosolutions had successfully installed filtration systems in over 200 facilities across North America, South America, and Southeast Asia. Independent testing confirmed that our technology consistently eliminated microplastic contamination while reducing overall treatment costs by an average of 35%. The financial success was equally impressive. Our company's valuation had reached $120 million, making my equity stake worth more than most people earned in their entire careers. But the number that mattered most to me was different. We had provided clean water access to over 3 million people worldwide. Graduation approached with a flurry of activity. The University of Akron invited me to deliver the commencement address, major corporations offered executive positions with starting salaries that exceeded my parents' combined lifetime earnings, and venture capital firms pitched acquisition proposals that would have made me personally wealthy beyond any reasonable measure. Instead, I announced my plans to expand Aqua Biosolutions internationally while completing a graduate degree in environmental policy. The company needed someone who understood both the technical aspects of water treatment and the regulatory frameworks that governed environmental protection efforts globally. "You're turning down opportunities that most business school graduates would kill for," Dr. Jennings pointed out during one of our regular mentoring sessions. "Are you sure you're making the right choice?" "I'm making the choice that aligns with my goals," I replied. "Money and prestige are nice, but they're not why I started this company. I want to solve the microplastics problem completely, not just profit from it partially." The night before graduation, David and Sarah Henderson hosted a celebration dinner at their house. Katie, now a sophomore in high school and planning to major in environmental science, had been accepted to a competitive summer research program that I had helped fund through the Sullivan Foundation. "Ria, you've accomplished more in 4 years than most people achieve in their entire careers," David said, raising his glass in a toast. "But more importantly, you've stayed true to the values that brought you to our family in the first place." Sarah nodded, tears gathering in her eyes as they always did during emotional moments. "You've proven that intelligence, determination, and compassion can change the world. We're so proud to be part of your journey." As we sat around their dining room table, sharing stories and planning for the future, I realized that I had indeed found another family, one that celebrated my successes, supported my ambitions, and understood that my desire to achieve great things came from a place of service rather than selfishness. But there was still one conversation I needed to have before I could truly close the chapter on my past and fully embrace the future I had built. The Forbes magazine arrived at my Cleveland office on a Tuesday morning in October, 6 months after graduation. My assistant, Jennifer Walsh, brought it to my desk with barely contained excitement. "Ria, you need to see this. You're not just in the magazine, you're on the cover." The cover photograph showed me standing in our main production facility, wearing a white lab coat and safety glasses, holding one of our bacterial filtration units. The headline read in bold letters, CEO of the Year, how 22-year-old Rhea Sullivan built a water treatment empire that's saving the planet. I stared at the magazine for several minutes, reading and rereading the cover text. CEO of the Year. Not Young Entrepreneur of the Year or Promising Startup Founder. CEO of the Year, competing against executives from Fortune 500 companies with decades of experience. The article inside was 8 pages long, complete with photographs of our facilities, interviews with our employees, and detailed analysis of Aqua Biosolutions' financial performance and environmental impact. Forbes had calculated that our technology would prevent over 50 million tons of microplastic contamination from entering global water supplies over the next decade. The remarkable thing about Sullivan, the article concluded, is not just her technical innovation or business acumen, but her unwavering commitment to using corporate success as a vehicle for social change. In an era when young entrepreneurs often prioritize rapid exits and personal enrichment, Sullivan has built a company designed to solve one of humanity's most pressing environmental challenges. I read that final paragraph 3 times before closing the magazine and reaching for my phone. The number for my mother's apartment was still saved in my contacts, unchanged after 8 years. I had never deleted it, though I had never called it either. My finger hovered over the screen for a full minute before I pressed the dial. The phone rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. "Hello? Mom, it's Ria." The silence that followed lasted so long, I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, my mother's voice came through the speaker, barely above a whisper. "Ria, is that really you?" "Yes, it's really me." Another long pause. I could hear sounds in the background, a television playing, someone moving around in another room. It's been 8 years, Mom said, her voice shaking slightly. "I wasn't sure I'd ever hear from you again." "You told me to find another family." I did. And they just put me on the cover of Forbes magazine. I heard what sounded like a sharp intake of breath, followed by muffled conversation as if Mom was covering the phone and talking to someone else. "Forbes magazine?" she asked when she came back on the line. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Forbes named me CEO of the Year. I built a company that's worth over $200 million. We employ 347 people across 6 countries, and our technology is providing clean water to over 8 million people worldwide." The silence stretched again, and I wondered if I should hang up. Part of me had expected this call to feel triumphant, but instead I felt oddly empty, like I was reporting news to a stranger rather than sharing a milestone with family. "Ria, Mom started, then stopped. "I don't understand. When did I what? When did I become successful? When did I prove that education wasn't a waste of time? When did I show Derek that smart girls don't always end up disappointed?" "Derek and we're not together anymore," Mom said quietly. "He moved out 3 years ago." This was information I hadn't expected. What happened? "He started drinking more heavily after the construction company he worked for went bankrupt. He became difficult. Emma moved out as soon as she turned 18 to get away from the fighting." "Where is Emma now?" "She's working at a grocery store in Mentor. She never finished high school. She got pregnant when she was 17 and dropped out to take care of the baby." I felt a stab of sadness for my sister, followed immediately by anger at Derek and at my mother for allowing Emma's potential to be wasted. Does she know about my success? I don't think so. We don't talk much. She blames me for a lot of things that happened after you left. Mom, why are you telling me this? What do you want from this conversation? Another pause. I guess I want to understand how you did it. How you went from that angry 16-year-old who left our apartment to CEO of the year. I looked around my office, the wall covered with patents and awards, the view of downtown Cleveland through floor-to-ceiling windows, the framed photograph of our team installing a water treatment system in a Guatemalan village. I did it by finding people who believed in my potential instead of people who were threatened by it. I did it by working with mentors who saw intelligence as an asset rather than a liability. I did it by surrounding myself with individuals who understood that supporting someone's dreams doesn't diminish your own security. Ria, I need you to know that I made mistakes. I was scared and overwhelmed, and Derek seemed like stability when everything else felt chaotic. You chose him over me, Mom. You literally told me to find another family because I wanted to pursue my education. I know what I said, her voice cracked. I've regretted those words every single day for 8 years. Have you? Because when you said them, you seemed pretty convinced that I was the problem. You seemed pretty sure that my ambitions were unrealistic and selfish. I was wrong. Those 3 words hung in the air between us. I had imagined this conversation countless times over the years, but I had never expected it to feel so anticlimactic. Her admission that she was wrong didn't erase 8 years of building a life without her support. It didn't change the fact that Emma had given up on education because no one in her family had shown her that intelligence was valuable. Mom, do you know what the hardest part was? It wasn't the financial struggle or the emotional isolation. I was wondering if you were right. It was wondering if I really was being selfish and unrealistic. It was fighting the voice in my head that sounded like Derek telling me that smart girls from our neighborhood don't belong in universities. But you proved us wrong. I proved myself right. There's a difference. I heard muffled crying on the other end of the line, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the old protectiveness I used to feel toward my mother when I was younger. Ria, is there any chance? Could we maybe try to rebuild some kind of relationship? I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I miss my daughter. I looked at the Forbes magazine on my desk, then at the photographs covering my office walls, images of the Henderson family at my college graduation, pictures with my employees at company celebrations, shots of me speaking at international conferences about environmental technology. Mom, I've built an incredible life. I have a family that chose me and supports me unconditionally. I have work that challenges me and makes a difference in the world. I have financial security that means I'll never again be dependent on anyone else's choices about my worth. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I know I have no right to say that, but I'm proud of who you've become. The person I became happened despite what you chose, not because of it. The Henderson family gave me the support and encouragement that allowed me to reach my potential. Miguel Rodriguez taught me that intelligence should be celebrated, not hidden. Dr. Jennings showed me that ambitious women deserve mentorship and opportunities. I understand if you can't forgive me. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window over downtown Cleveland. 8 years ago, I had left that cramped apartment with 3 cardboard boxes and no guarantee that my dreams were achievable. Today, I was running a company that was solving global environmental problems and providing opportunities for hundreds of employees to build meaningful careers. Mom, I'm proud of you, she whispered. I know I have no right to say that, but I'm proud of who you've become. The person I became happened despite what you chose, not because of it. The Henderson family gave me the support and encouragement that allowed me to reach my potential. Miguel Rodriguez taught me that intelligence should be celebrated, not hidden. Dr. Jennings showed me that ambitious women deserve mentorship and opportunities. I understand if you can't forgive me. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window over downtown Cleveland. 8 years ago, I had left that cramped apartment with 3 cardboard boxes and no guarantee that my dreams were achievable. Today, I was running a company that was solving global environmental problems and providing opportunities for hundreds of employees to build meaningful careers. Mom, forgiveness isn't the issue here. The issue is that we're fundamentally different people with completely different values. You chose security over supporting your daughter's potential. I chose to build a life where those aren't competing priorities. Could we maybe meet for coffee sometime? I'd like to hear about your work and your life. Why? What would be the point of that conversation? Because you're my daughter, and I love you, and I've spent 8 years regretting the biggest mistake I ever made. I closed my eyes and thought about the 16-year-old girl who had desperately wanted her mother's approval and support. That girl would have been thrilled to hear these words. But I wasn't 16 anymore, and I had learned to value consistency and reliability over emotional gestures. Mom, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your love or your regret or your pride. I needed those things when I was a teenager trying to figure out if my dreams were worth pursuing. But I found them somewhere else. So, there's no chance for us? I thought about my answer carefully. There's a chance for you to be happy that I succeeded despite the obstacles you created. There's a chance for you to learn from your mistakes and maybe support other young people in ways you didn't support me. But there's no chance for us to have the mother-daughter relationship we might have had if you had made different choices 8 years ago. I understand. I hope Emma can still turn her life around. It's not too late for her to pursue education or find work that uses her intelligence. If she's interested, I'd be happy to provide resources through my foundation. I'll let her know. Good. Take care of yourself, Mom. I ended the call and set the phone down on my desk. The conversation had lasted less than 15 minutes, but it felt like closing a chapter that had been left unfinished for nearly a decade. That afternoon, I called David Henderson and told him about the conversation with my mother. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Relieved," I said honestly. I realized that I don't need her validation anymore. I have a family that chose me, a career that fulfills me, and the financial resources to help other young people avoid the obstacles I faced. Her approval would have been nice 8 years ago, but it's not necessary now. That sounds like the perspective of someone who has truly moved beyond the pain of rejection. I think I have. The girl who needed her mother's support became a woman who learned to create her own support systems. The success feels more authentic because I built it independently. 2 weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from Emma. Emma's letter arrived on a Thursday morning, written in the same careful handwriting I remembered from when she was 8 years old, and asked me to help her with thank you notes after her birthday party. Dear Rhea, Mom told me you called. She also showed me the Forbes magazine with your picture on the cover. I stared at it for 20 minutes, trying to reconcile the successful woman in the photograph with the sister I remember packing boxes in our shared bedroom. I need to tell you some things, and I'm not sure I'll have the courage to say them out loud, so I'm writing instead. You were right about everything. College wasn't a waste of money. Education wasn't unrealistic for girls like us. Derek was threatened by your intelligence, and Mom was wrong to choose his comfort over your dreams. After you left, Derek became worse. He started drinking heavily and taking his frustrations out on anyone nearby. He told me constantly that smart girls were troublemakers and that I should focus on finding a good man to take care of me instead of wasting time on schoolwork. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him because it was easier than fighting for something that seemed impossible to achieve. I dropped out of high school when I got pregnant at 17. My daughter's name is Sophia, and she's 4 years old now. She's incredibly bright. She taught herself to read using library books and asks questions about everything she sees. When I watch Sophia's curiosity about the world, I think about you at that age. I remember how excited you'd get about science projects and how you'd stay up late reading encyclopedias. I remember Derek destroying your solar water purifier, and I remember taking his side instead of yours. I'm ashamed of the person I became after you left. I'm ashamed that I let Derek convince me that intelligence was something to hide rather than celebrate. I'm ashamed that I made fun of your ambitions when I should have been learning from your determination. But mostly, I'm ashamed that I never apologized for abandoning my sister when she needed family support the most. I've been thinking about going back to school to get my GED. Sophia deserves a mother who shows her that education is valuable and that women can achieve extraordinary things. I want to be the kind of person who encourages her dreams instead of discouraging them. I know you don't owe me anything, and I understand if you don't want contact with the family that rejected you. But if you're willing, I'd like to try to rebuild some kind of relationship with my sister. I want Sophia to know about her aunt who became CEO of the year. I want her to understand that intelligence and ambition are gifts, not problems. Love, Emma. P.S. I still have your collection of National Geographic magazines. I saved them when Mom was cleaning out your old room. I've been reading them to Sophia, and she loves the articles about ocean exploration and space travel. I read Emma's letter 3 times before setting it aside and staring out my office window at the Cleveland skyline. The anger I had carried toward my sister for 8 years had evaporated, replaced by something I hadn't expected: hope. Emma's letter showed genuine understanding of the mistakes that had been made and authentic commitment to change. More importantly, it revealed that she had a daughter who might benefit from the kind of support and encouragement I had never received from my biological family. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Emma had included at the bottom of her letter. Hello? Her voice sounded older, more tired than I remembered. Emma, it's Rhea. I got your letter. Oh my God, Rhea, I wasn't sure you'd call. Your letter was honest and thoughtful. It meant a lot to me. I've been wanting to write to you for years, but I was too embarrassed about how badly I screwed up my life. Emma, you're 26 years old. You haven't screwed up your life. You've just made some choices that limited your options. Those choices can be changed. Do you really think so? Sometimes I feel like I'm too far behind to ever catch up. I think you have a 4-year-old daughter who's counting on you to show her what's possible. That's the most powerful motivation in the world. Emma started crying softly. I miss you. I've missed you every day since you left. I've missed you too. I've wondered constantly what kind of person you'd become if you'd had different influences and support systems. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your company and your success. I want to understand how you did it. I spent the next hour describing my journey from that cramped apartment to building Aqua Biosolutions. I told Emma about the Henderson family, my university experiences, the patents and innovations, and the international recognition. But mostly, I talked about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who believe in your potential. The key, I explained, was learning that intelligence and ambition aren't selfish traits that need to be hidden. They're tools for creating positive change in the world. I want Sophia to understand that, Emma said. I want her to see her curiosity and intelligence as strengths. What if I helped you create that environment for her? What do you mean? I mean, what if you and Sophia move to Cleveland? What if you enroll in a GED program and then community college while I helped with childcare and expenses? What if Sophia grew up around people who celebrate education and encourage big dreams? Emma was quiet for a long moment. Rhea, that's incredibly generous, but I don't want to be a charity case. You wouldn't be a charity case. You'd be my sister, rebuilding your life and creating opportunities for your daughter. The Sullivan Foundation provides exactly these kinds of support services for families committed to educational advancement. You'd really do that for us? Emma, 8 years ago, our mother told me to find another family. I found the Hendersons, who gave me unconditional support and encouragement. Now I have the resources to offer similar support to other people, including you and Sophia. What about Mom? How would she feel about me moving to Cleveland to be closer to you? I thought about my conversation with Caroline a few weeks earlier. Mom made her choices 8 years ago. Now it's time for you to make yours. 3 months later, Emma and Sophia moved into an apartment near my office in Cleveland. Emma enrolled in an accelerated GED program at Cuyahoga Community College, while Sophia started attending a progressive preschool that emphasized science and critical thinking skills. Watching my sister rebuild her confidence and academic skills was like seeing a time-lapse video of someone's potential being unlocked. Emma approached her studies with the same intensity I remembered from our childhood, staying up late to complete assignments and asking thoughtful questions during class discussions. Sophia turned out to be every bit as brilliant as Emma had described. At 4 years old, she could explain the water cycle, identify constellations, and solve basic multiplication problems. More importantly, she asked the kind of questions that showed she was learning to think scientifically about the world around her. Aunt Rhea, Sophia said during one of our weekend science experiments, why do you have so many awards on your office walls? Because I solved problems that help people have cleaner water to drink. Could I solve problems like that when I grow up? You can solve any problems you want to solve, sweetheart. The world needs smart people who care about making things better. Emma smiled from across the kitchen table where we were conducting our experiment. Derek used to tell us that smart girls were troublemakers. Smart girls are problem solvers, I corrected, and the world has plenty of problems that need solving. 6 months after Emma and Sophia moved to Cleveland, I received a call that would expand Aquabio Solutions into new territory. The European Union had approved our bacterial filtration technology for implementation across member nations, creating a market opportunity worth over $500 million annually. The EU contract required us to establish manufacturing facilities in 3 European countries and hire over 2,000 additional employees. It was the kind of expansion that would cement Aquabio Solutions as a global leader in environmental technology. Emma had completed her GED and was halfway through her first year at community college, majoring in environmental science with plans to transfer to a 4-year university. Watching her rediscover her love of learning was one of the most satisfying experiences of my professional life. "I've been thinking," Emma said one evening as we reviewed her chemistry homework together, "about what I want to do after I finish my degree." "What have you been thinking?" "I want to work for the Sullivan Foundation. I want to help other families navigate the challenges we face. I want to be the person who shows teenage girls that education can be their path to independence." I looked at my sister, 27 years old, studying advanced chemistry concepts that she had been told were too difficult for girls like her, and felt something I hadn't experienced since building my first water filtration prototype. Pure pride. "Emma, I think that's a perfect idea. The foundation needs someone who understands firsthand what it's like to overcome family resistance to educational goals. Plus, I want Sophia to grow up seeing women in leadership roles who use their intelligence to help other people." That night, after Emma and Sophia had gone home to their apartment, I sat in my office reviewing financial projections for our European expansion. The numbers were impressive. Within 2 years, Aquabio Solutions would be valued at over $1 billion, making me one of the youngest female billionaires in history. But the number that mattered most to me wasn't in any financial report. It was the number of people whose lives had been improved by clean water access, educational opportunities, and support for their dreams. Over 12 million people now had access to cleaner water because of our filtration technology. The Sullivan Foundation had provided scholarships and support services to over 3,000 students who faced family opposition to their educational goals. Emma was rebuilding her life and creating new possibilities for Sophia's future. 8 years earlier, my mother had told me to find another family because I wanted to pursue my education. I had taken her advice more literally than she intended. I found David and Sarah Henderson, who taught me that families support each other's dreams unconditionally. I found Miguel Rodriguez, who showed me that intelligence should be celebrated and nurtured. I found Dr. Jennings and countless other mentors who invested in my potential without expecting anything in return. Most importantly, I had created a new kind of family: employees who were passionate about environmental solutions, scholarship recipients who were pursuing ambitious goals, and now Emma and Sophia, who were building futures that honored both intelligence and compassion. The girl who had been told to find another family had grown into a woman who created families for other people who needed them. And that felt like the greatest success of all. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.